August 15, 1945, a makeshift facility outside Rangoon, Burma. The announcement of Japanese surrender crackled through a damaged radio, barely audible over the monsoon rain hammering the corrugated metal roof. 23 Korean women, aged 16 to 34, sat motionless in the stifling heat, unable to process what the words might mean for them. Kim Sunok, 22 years old, had stopped hoping 3 years earlier. The daughter of a farmer from Gyeonggi province, she had been taken from a factory in Seoul in 1942 with promises of well-paying work in a Japanese military laundry. Instead, she and 40 other Korean girls had been shipped to Burma to a system the Japanese military called comfort stations. The euphemism concealed one of history's most systematic violations of human dignity. What Kim Sunok couldn't know, sitting in that sweltering room as rain pounded outside, was that within 72 hours, she would encounter something that contradicted everything she had learned about men, about armies, about survival. American soldiers would arrive not as conquerors seeking spoils, but as liberators offering something she had forgotten existed: simple human decency without demands, without transactions, without prices. The contrast between what she expected and what she received would break her completely, then begin to rebuild her. For the first time in 3 years, she would weep not from pain or fear, but from the overwhelming shock of being treated as a human being deserving of dignity and protection. This is the story of how American GIs, often just teenagers themselves, responded to one of war's darkest chapters, not with exploitation, but with compassion, not with demands, but with donations of their own clothes, rations, and respect. It's a story about the moment when victims of systematic dehumanization discovered that not all soldiers were the same, that not all armies operated by the same brutal logic they had known. The Japanese military's comfort women system emerged from a calculated decision by imperial headquarters to prevent what they termed discipline problems among troops. After the rape of Nanking in 1937–38, where an estimated 20,000 to 80,000 Chinese women were assaulted by Japanese soldiers, the military command decided that organized, controlled facilities would be more efficient than the chaos of mass assault. What developed was a bureaucratic system of sexual slavery that eventually ensnared between 50,000 and 200,000 women, approximately 80% of them Korean, with others from China, the Philippines, Indonesia, and other occupied territories. The Japanese military established over 2,000 comfort stations across their conquered territories, from Manchuria to the South Pacific. The recruitment methods varied from outright kidnapping to deceptive promises of factory work, nursing positions, or other legitimate employment. Kim Sunoki's experience was typical. In March 1942, a Korean man working with Japanese authorities approached her factory, offering positions at a Japanese military facility doing laundry and cleaning for 30 yen monthly, more than triple her current wages. 20 girls from her factory, aged 15 to 23, signed up. They were given train tickets to Busan, then ship passage to Singapore, then Rangoon. Only when they arrived at the facility did they understand the truth. There were no laundry facilities, no cleaning supplies. There were only rooms with thin mattresses and numbers on doors. The system operated with military efficiency, medical examinations weekly to prevent disease transmission. Ticket systems where soldiers paid the station operators, who kept most of the money. Strict schedules determining when women could eat, sleep, or use facilities. Military police ensuring no woman escaped. It was slavery dressed in bureaucratic procedures, rape systematized into military logistics. By 1945, the comfort station network stretched across the Japanese Empire. In Burma alone, military records documented at least 40 stations, most located near major military installations or supply routes. The women served Japanese soldiers, Korean guards working for the Japanese, and occasionally high-ranking officers who had private access. Kim Soon-ok later testified that she and the other women were told daily that if Allied forces ever arrived, they would be treated far worse. Japanese officers described Americans as beasts who would torture and kill them. The propaganda served dual purposes. It kept women from seeking rescue, and it reflected Japanese military attitudes toward conquered populations. When the atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in early August 1945, the women in Rangoon heard rumors but understood nothing. Japanese guards became erratic, some abandoning their posts, others drinking heavily. On August 14th, station operators suddenly left, taking all money and most food supplies. 23 Korean women were left alone in the facility with no guards, no operators, no protection, and no idea what happened next. August 18th, 1945. 3 days after surrender, elements of the British 14th Army entered Rangoon, accompanied by American liaison officers and engineers. Captain James Morrison of the U.S. Army Engineers, a 24-year-old from Iowa, was assigned to assess infrastructure for reconstruction. His unit included 12 enlisted men, most between 18 and 22 years old. While surveying a damaged warehouse district, Morrison's interpreter, a Chinese-American sergeant named David Wong, heard Korean voices calling from a building nearby. The structure appeared to be some kind of Japanese military facility, but the voices were clearly female and clearly terrified. Morrison approached cautiously. Through the interpreter, he learned that Korean women were inside, former workers for the Japanese military who had been abandoned. Morrison had no idea what a comfort station was. The euphemism meant nothing to him. He assumed they were perhaps laundry workers or nurses. The scene that greeted Morrison and his men when they entered the facility shocked them completely. 23 women, malnourished, dressed in threadbare clothes or makeshift garments, cowered in corners. Many covered their faces, several were crying. The youngest looked barely 15, the oldest perhaps 35, though malnutrition made age difficult to determine. What Morrison recorded in his daily log that evening reveals his complete lack of preparation for what he encountered. Found group of Korean women in Japanese facility, approximately 23 individuals in poor health, minimal clothing, evident trauma. Women extremely fearful of our presence. Interpreter Wong explained they were comfort women for Japanese military. I did not understand the term initially. Sergeant Wong, whose family had fled Japanese occupation in China, understood immediately what comfort women meant. He later testified that he had to step outside to compose himself before continuing translation. The women, seeing armed men enter, assumed the worst. Several began pleading in Korean not to be hurt. One woman, Kim Soon-ok, positioned herself in front of the youngest girl, 17-year-old Lee Mai-hee, attempting to protect her. Captain Morrison's next actions would be remembered by these women for the rest of their lives. Instead of approaching them, he backed away to the doorway, keeping distance. He removed his helmet, a universal gesture of non-aggression. Speaking through Wong, he said simply, "We are American Army. The war is over. Japan surrendered. You are safe now. We will not hurt you." The women didn't believe him. They had been told for years that American and British soldiers were barbaric, that capture meant torture and death. Kim Soon-ok later recalled thinking this was a cruel trick, that the soldiers were toying with them before violence began. Morrison, recognizing their terror, made a decision that seemed obvious to him but revolutionary to the women. He told his men to stay outside, all of them. He remained in the doorway where the women could see him, but he wouldn't enter their space. Through Wong, who stood beside him also in the doorway, he asked what they needed most urgently. The question itself was incomprehensible to the women. No one had asked what they needed in 3 years. They existed to serve needs, not to have them. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, the oldest woman, Park Soon-ja, age 34, whispered a single word: clothes. What they wore was barely functional. The Japanese station operators had provided minimal garments, mostly thin cotton that had disintegrated through years of use and inadequate washing facilities. Many women had fashioned repairs using scavenged fabric. Some wore Japanese military undershirts taken from abandoned supplies. All were inadequate for basic dignity. Morrison immediately understood. He turned to his men waiting outside and gave an order that surprised them. "Strip your packs. Give me every spare shirt, trousers, undershirt, anything clean you've got. We're donating it, now." Private First Class Robert Henderson from Nebraska protested, "Captain, that's our personal gear. Regulations say." Morrison cut him off. "I don't care about regulations. These women need clothes. Empty your packs." Within minutes, Morrison had collected 12 shirts, 8 pairs of trousers, numerous undershirts, and several towels. He carried them to the doorway, set them down inside the entrance, then stepped back outside. Through Wong, he said, "These are for you. They're clean. They're yours. We want nothing in return." The last sentence made several women weep. Kim Sunok later explained, "Everything in 3 years had a price. Food had a price. Medicine had a price. Every kindness required payment in the only currency we had. When the American captain said, 'We want nothing in return,' I thought I had misunderstood the translation. No man had ever given us anything without demanding something." The women didn't immediately take the clothes. They waited, expecting the trap to reveal itself. Morrison and his men simply stood outside in the afternoon heat, making no move to enter. Finally, Park Soonja, the oldest, crawled forward, grabbed a shirt and retreated quickly. When nothing happened, when no demand was made, she began sobbing. One by one, the other women approached. They took the clothes carefully, as if expecting them to be snatched away. They returned to their corners and changed, many turning their backs for the first time, experiencing privacy in years. The American soldiers remained outside, giving them space and dignity. Private Henderson, watching this scene, later wrote to his mother, "Mum, I don't know what those women went through, but whatever it was, it broke them completely. The way they cried over shirts and pants, the way they couldn't believe we weren't going to hurt them. I've never seen anything like it. The captain gave them our spare clothes and they acted like we'd given them the world." The transformation was immediate and profound. Once the women were dressed in American military clothes, oversized and wrapped with belts or cord, their demeanor changed slightly. They sat more upright. They looked toward the doorway where Morrison remained. For the first time, Kim Sunok made eye contact with him. Through Wong, Morrison asked if they needed food. The women hadn't eaten in 2 days. Again, Morrison's men contributed from personal rations. K rations, C rations, chocolate bars, cigarettes, even someone's carefully hoarded tin of peaches. Morrison added his own rations to the pile. The food was brought to the doorway by Sergeant Wong, who set it down and stepped back. This time, the women approached more quickly. They distributed food among themselves with careful equity, the older women ensuring younger ones ate first. They ate slowly, methodically, making the rations last. Corporal James Wilson from Texas, a 19-year-old who had been in Burma for 3 months, watched this and later recorded in his journal, "They shared everything equal. The older women gave bigger portions to the younger ones. They weren't just hungry, they were starving, but they still took care of each other." It made me think about my sister back home. These could be anyone's sisters or daughters. What the Japs did to them, I can't even write it down. As evening approached, Morrison faced a dilemma. His unit was supposed to return to base camp, but he couldn't leave these women alone in an abandoned building with no security, no supplies, and no way to seek help. He radioed his commanding officer, Major Thomas Fletcher, explaining the situation. Fletcher's response was immediate. "Set up a perimeter, guard them overnight. I'll send medical and relief supplies at first light." And Morrison, good work. Morrison organized his men into rotating guard shifts around the building's perimeter. He made clear, "We guard the outside. No one enters without permission. We're protecting them from anyone who might come through here, and we're protecting them from assumptions anyone might make about why we're here. Clear. That night, sleeping in their corners for the first time, without fear of night visits from Japanese soldiers or guards, several women wept quietly. Kim Soon-ok later described it. For 3 years, nighttime meant terror. Men would come, drunk often, violent sometimes. We learned to sleep lightly, always alert. That first night with American soldiers guarding outside, I heard Private Henderson walking patrol, heard him humming some American song. It was the first night I felt safe enough to truly sleep. I woke up crying because I had forgotten what safety felt like. The next morning brought more Americans, including a British medical officer, a Red Cross nurse, and an American chaplain. Captain Morrison had requested the nurse specifically.